Hi, this is Angie. Today we're going to talk about how to use your different IDs at different situations. As a new student in the IAP program, you must be quite confused about how to use your different IDs in different forms. Now, here is a chart that I made for you. For all new students in the IAP program, you will have a deposit ID. Now that is on the offer letter or the statement of fees letter. So if you got a document that asks you to pay the tuition, it is on the second page of that document or the first page of that document. Just make sure to scroll through that page very carefully. You will need your deposit ID, which is also called Shorelight ID, when you're making payments or asking for refunds. You will also need that ID when you're filling out flight arrival form or filling out the on-campus arrival form. Now, once you get to USC, you have 4 different types of IDs, and let me explain the differences to you. You will have a type of ID called VIP ID. Now, VIP ID is a series of numbers that starts with 20, most likely, and you will use that to log into your Self-Service Carolina or log into your USC Blackboard. You will have a USC ID. USC ID is a longer series of numbers that starts with an alphabet, and you will only use that to verify your identity. So USC ID is more of an official ID. You don't really use that often, but you will only use that when it comes to a serious situation that you need to verify who you are. You will also have an ID called Network Username. Network Username is the first part of your USC email. That's how you log into your math placement test. If you're an undergraduate student, that's how you log into your USC email. You will use your network username when you're logging into your Self-Service Carolina, your USC email, your Blackboard, and the Health Center website. Last but not least, if you are an academic English student, which means you're only taking full English courses and not university courses, you will go into a program called EPI. That's English Program for Internationals. For academic English students in EPI, you will get an EPI ID, and that ID normally starts with a 600. So let me show you what each IDs are. For the deposit ID or the Shorelight ID, when you're filling out the pre-arrival form, there will be a deposit ID here. When you're using your VIP ID, most likely you're trying to log into your Self-Service Carolina, that's the university website, or you're trying to log into Blackboard, which is the website that you're watching this video on. You can use your VIP ID or your network username to log into the Self-Service Carolina, and the same as Blackboard. VIP ID is a series of numbers and only numbers. There's no English alphabet in there. But your network username is mostly a combination between your first name or your last name with a number. So for example, my last name is Wang, W-A-N-G. So my network username is Wang532. So it really depends on each person. I can't really tell you what your network username is. You will need to find that out by logging into Self-Service Carolina. So these are some situations that you will need to use your network username. Number 1 is Blackboard. The second one is to log into your USC email. So to use your network username to log into your email, you also have to put your full email in there, which is your network username first at email.sc.edu. The third one is logging into Self-Service Carolina. As we mentioned earlier, you can use your network username or your VIP ID. And last but not least, you will need to use your network username to log into My Health Space. That is the health center website that USC uses. With My Health Space, you cannot use any other types of IDs to log in. You can only use your network username. USC ID is going to be appearing on the back of your Carolina card, which is your student card. So after you arrive on campus, during orientation, we will take you to the Carolina Card office to get your student ID. And on the back of the ID, there will be a series of numbers that starts with alphabet, and that will be your USC ID. You don't use this ID very often. Normally, websites won't ask you to log in. However, when you're emailing your professor or when you're trying to identify yourself, making sure the other person know who you are, you use your USC ID. You also need to use your Carolina card, or this is also your student ID. You also need to use a Carolina card when you're accessing library resources or going to university gym. Last one, EPI ID. So if you are an academic English students who are only taking full English courses, not university courses, you will get a piece of paper like this during orientation before classes start. On the top right corner, it will tell you what your user ID is. It normally starts with 600, followed by 5 other numbers. Again, just as a general reminder, this is a chart of when and where you should use your different IDs. If you find it very confusing, I promise it is just as confusing as for us when we just started. It will take some time for you to get used to it, so I suggest you take a screenshot and really try to memorize these, or just have this printed out and go through the orientation with you. I promise this will seem a lot more normal and you'll get used to it in no time. Thank you very much for listening.